Hi, and welcome to Monday Morning of Faith. Thanks for tuning in. For those of you who are wondering what may have happened to our Monday mornings about Black Lives Matter and intercultural relations, that hasn't been put on hiatus forever. It's just that this Monday is the last Monday that I'll be recording like this because I'm going on vacation, and I have with our communities in St. Andrews and Carleton Memorial another 12 weeks coming up about those kinds of things starting in August. So today I wanted to do just three quick things. The first, actually, I'm going to just do right now, is to offer my gratitude for the opportunity to be with you all, to offer my gratitude to the communities that I serve. That's Carleton Memorial and St. Andrews United Church, who have been very supportive about these Monday morning videos. To say a special thank you to Andrew Nickel and to Joanne Tanner, who are part of the preaching staff of those two communities, who every week very faithfully added their pieces to what were our weekly messages. So some gratitude to all of those folk. There's a long list of people, and we'll get to the rest of them at the end because I want to delve into the core of our message. In an earlier take that I've since re-recorded, I was talking about all the frontline workers in grocery stores and in our alcohol outlets, the LCBO in Ontario and the SAQ in Quebec. And I was mentioning that at the very beginning of all of this, 4 months ago, it was very clear to me that, as a society, we were just coping. And you could see people in the stores working extremely stressed, and you could see patrons of the stores really stressed. The most shocking thing that I saw was I was online at the LCBO, and a young man shows up, and he's angry. The security guard tells him to calm down, and the young man was actually carrying a knife. That happened. There was another one. I was in line at the Farm Boy here in Ottawa on Bank Street, and somebody showed up and was frustrated that we were in line and began to berate one of the young kids, and high school students in line, and you could just sort of see that the stress was overcoming this person, and it calmed down after a while. But those were scary times, and we seem to have moved into a place where, although things are calmer on the surface, underneath the energy is churning up. Do you feel like that? Do you feel like the energy is churning up? And are you struggling to figure out what to do about it? Well, I think Paul has some great advice for us in terms of his faith. Paul, in his letter to Romans, and just follow my hands for a second, talks to us about grace. And when he says that we find grace, when grace reaches us, like Amazing Grace, the hymn, was blind but now I see type of stuff. It makes it easier for us to come into contact with our struggles and our suffering, which sustains us in our perseverance to try and meet those challenges, and that develops our character, and out of that comes hope. So I do this deep dive and resurfacing on purpose. From grace to struggle and suffering to perseverance to character, back up to hope. And Paul says that when you do this, hope will never, never disappoint you. And grace is something that is very sure in which you can stand. Grace is something sure that you can stand, and hope is something that will not disappoint you. So really, really simply, the way that works in your faith life is that sometimes we look at hope as this whim in a prayer thing, like we're looking for this outward sign, like somehow if I have a good day, that's a reason to be hopeful, and then I have more energy, more wind in my sails, and life is great until something comes along, and on the other end of it, if I've mixed grace and hope, I'm not really acting very graceful anymore, just like the people who were losing it at the stores at the very beginning of all of this. Paul has it right, I think. Grace, struggle, perseverance, character, hope. So what's grace? What really is that? Some people will find it in prayer. Some people will find it in meditation. Other people will find it in exercise, but you sort of get my drift. The idea is that you get yourself into a meditative place that shuts the world out, and you do it long enough till the world is shut out. That you get in touch with the core of your inner goodness. And every time that you feel it's starting to wane, you go back and you meditate. So it's possible during a really tough day, you might have to do that several times a day. Little wonder, for example, that Muslims may pray 5 times in a day. It's based on that kind of a thing. And when you get into touch with that inner core, well, then you can see how, struggle, perseverance, and character fall into line with each other. And hope is not the outcome of a great day, or it's not the outcome of having succeeded at something. It's an outcome of knowing that you can always repeat this process. And that what can sustain you over the long haul. Ask anybody who has persevered through weeks, months, and years sometimes of struggle like this. People with chronic illnesses, people who are refugees, people who are like ministers who are people who have been racialized, and what it's like to try and speak. Those kinds of people who have been persecuted, they'll tell you the same thing. That's why Amazing Grace was written in the first place at all. Slave trader realized that he had just totally misunderstood the world and mended his ways. So, the last thing I'd like to share with you, after we've gotten the grace, struggle, perseverance, character, hope, where grace is something in which we stand and hope will never disappoint us, is this thing about prayer. It's one thing to do it for yourself, but it's another thing to know that someone is doing it for you. And there are lots of people that we can think about to pray for. I would like to single out 2 groups today. And I know that you got to be really careful when you do that, because it's really easy to say, well, these groups are important, and then somebody says, yeah, but everybody's important. It's like saying Black Lives Matter, and then somebody says, yeah, but all lives matter, which is true, but for the moment we want to talk about that Black Lives Matter. So the 2 groups that I want to talk about are these. I want to lump in together funeral directors, daycare educators, and teachers. And the reason why I grouped those 3 together is it's just that they're people that I spend a lot of time with in my ministry, and I have an inside look at their lives, and I want to share something with you. And then I want to talk about pastors. And I want to do that for a different reason. Because I'm going to tell you that there are pastors right across this country and this continent. God, I would hate to be a minister in the United States right now. Boy, that must be a really tough gig. Who are actually not even sure how to speak. Because there are no unions, there are no associations, there are clergy networks of people who are self-supported, and there are board members who try to support their work. And I'm not complaining, but I want to highlight something that I think that's important, because your pastors need your prayers too. So let's start with the funeral directors and the teachers and the daycare educators. So this digging deep? What separates these 3 groups is if they're going to support you or support someone. If a family comes into a daycare, for example, and are stressed and they need to dig deep to face their struggles, the daycare educator needs to dig 1 step deeper, because they need to support them from underneath to lift them up. It's this digging deep that's underneath, and it's different than doing therapy, because when a daycare educator or a teacher or a funeral director gets involved with the life of a person, the fabric of their entire life meshes with them. It's not just the service that they're providing. They're digging deep into the emotional struggles of people who are grieving, who are stressed, who don't know how they're going to learn. Prayer for those people, knowing that someone is praying for them, allows them to be, that extra energy to shut out the problems of the world. And now there's your pastors. And what separates them, I think, is that they're increasingly in what I see out there and what I'm hearing from my colleagues right across the country, is that there are no more idle conversations. When pastors introduce themselves as pastors or ministers or reverends, whatever you want to call it, to other people, it opens up a real spiritual discussion, because people are looking for grace, because they are suffering and they are looking to persevere and they want to build their character. And there's still this innate understanding that a minister or a pastor or a reverend or a priest might have a different kind of connection to help them find that grace they're looking for. More than being told to take care of ourselves, because we know that, we need your prayers. More than being told to manage our time, because we know that, we need your prayers. More even than being just simply thanked for all the extra work that some of us do to put stuff online or whatever it is, because we appreciate that, we need your prayers. I don't want to sound out any alarm bells, right? Because you got to be careful when you ask for help. I was just on a service yesterday given by a French colleague of mine named Stéphane Vermette. You should check out his church online, Église Saint Clair, about how difficult it can be to ask for help. That struck a chord with me. So, pray for your pastors, or your ministers, or your reverends, or your priests, or your clergy people, however you want to call it. Don't do it out of pity, and don't worry. Do it out of faith. Do it out of grace, and out of struggle, and out of perseverance, and out of character, so that we can all equally live in hope that will not disappoint us. Have a great summer. Have a great summer. Be with God. Pray. Be blessed. Be a blessing. And I'll see you in August. Amen.